Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. It's always a pleasure to review one of Brian Harris's books, and he's given me this rather interesting new book to have a look at. It's called Missing Books, A Wander Through One Man's Library by Brian Harris. Now, it's an interesting book, this one, because obviously it was something Brian wished to produce, and so I said, well, I'd be delighted to review it. So what I've done for the title of the book review is I said, so what is in a library? Brian tells us and presents his particular interest for all to see, as dictators remain frightened by books. Now, I hope that's intriguing enough for you just to start off with. Let's have a look. It's only a very small little book. Here it is. There's the front, there's the spine, and then at the back there are a few little bits and pieces. Now, it runs to something approaching 147 pages, and that's a little bit about some of Brian's last few books. The front, that's the front page there, and there's a nice little dedication, which I'll let you see there, and then we've got contents. And you see how the book is structured. Quite interesting the way he's actually produced all of this. You can see the various titles he's got, and he's produced basically a short introduction. It says first thoughts, and there's a quote: "In order to write, a man will turn over half a library to make one book." Samuel Johnson from Boswell's Life. And Brian wrote this in June 2016. I'm recording this at the beginning of 2017, and he starts off with A Time to Lose, and he talks, it's a very personal book, he talks about a whole range of things. So there's a little bit of autobiography of Brian in it, but it's a good little book, and I found it's very easy to read, like all of his works. But what do we say about the book? Well, we say the following, because of course with this particular type of work, Brian of course is well known to many of you as a lawyer, but he's also I would say very much a man involved in literature, as a great supporter of Rudyard Kipling. Now, as I say, Brian therefore is known to many in the legal world for his outstanding contribution to our profession, that's the legal profession, and for his dedication to the life and works of Rudyard Kipling. His sad goodbye to some of his books strike a chord, I suspect, with many of us, because we've been in the same position as we downsize our own personal collections. Notwithstanding all of the newfangled e-texts and all the other stuff, I still like to open, like many people do, a book and have a look at it, and I like to have it on the bookshelves as well. His latest short paperback, this one here called Missing Books, is a fascinating gem of a book for book collectors, and clearly a book for book lovers, of which we, I think, fit in quite nicely as reviewers. The trouble is that the love of books is a bit of a dying art today, with the renaming of libraries as learning centres, with all the electronics and the general rebranding of what we knew as libraries in our youth, with the arrival of the internet and of course this fourth industrial revolution for the digital world, which is just upon us, with the advent of an expansion of artificial intelligence and some very big changes that are occurring towards the end of this decade. Now, Brian tells us in his publishing blurb that the great and wondrous things can happen around books, and we've got some wonderful examples which they're on the internet, but they're well worth looking at. Boswell met Johnson at Tom Davis's bookshop in Covent Garden. Karl Marx planned to remodel the world in the reading room of the British Museum. Georg Louis Borg conceived a universe in the form of a vast library, and he goes on to say that as a child I spent my Sunday mornings in the Battersea Reference Library. Actually, I've been there. Lovely library. Awaiting my mother's Sunday roast. Well, I wasn't doing the last bit, but I certainly know the Battersea Reference Library. We wondered how many others of his vintage share the same memories we do, but not obviously in Battersea necessarily. He goes on to make an important social and political point, I think, saying that the loss of a library can be a catastrophe, and I agree with that. And a lot of other people across the party political board, I think, do too. The counterbalance is that Brian has made the most of his library by inviting the reader to take a trip around and through the contents of his bookshelves, past and present, from children's books to science fiction, from poets ancient and modern to groundbreaking forms of biography, from literature, humour to books and life's deeper issues. And that's really his message, which is what's on the web. And it's a little bit like visiting the massive National Trust piles that we do and making a beeline for the library, always a nice occasion, so we can sniff out the reading habits of past worthies. And it's always great fun, of course, especially as you probably think that most of the books in their libraries are never written, never actually been looked at. But there we go. Brian picks out a storyline describing how the writings of an English rope maker helped bring about two of the world's greatest revolutions, and how a book moved Abraham Lincoln to take up the cause of emancipation. And of course Brian has views on many topical matters, including the importance of reading to the growing child, the inconvenience of over-weighty volumes, and when plagiarism can be justified. An interesting point, that last one, because it's not really plagiarism then, it's a commentary on what's already been written, although it depends really on how you're going to interpret it, and I don't know whether it really can be justified in that sense. But that's a matter for Brian to argue his corner. Let me conclude by saying it's interesting stuff, although we like the final word when he comments that he hoped his e-reader would fill the gap left by the missing books. Some hope as we miss the look, the smell and the touch, which makes books objects of desire, and we certainly do miss some of our missing books. I have more than the occasional pang of regret when we no longer have them, but we do have missing books from Brian Harris to cheer us up. So frankly, e-books are not the future, merely an addition to the creation of the book, which we hope will remain with us forever. So thank you very much, Brian. Here's the book again. There it is. It's a very small book. It's a nice little read. It's a gentle read. And just opening it in the middle, autobiography. You see, there's an awful lot of Brian in this book, and I'd like to thank him very much, notwithstanding he was a Brexiteer. But Brian, we've all got over it, so don't worry. Thank you very much indeed, and do get the book and have a good read of it. Bye-bye.